All right, so today we're diving into a book that really kind of turns everything you think about happiness upside down.
Mm.
It's called The Courage to be Disliked. And it's
Yeah.
interesting because it's written as a dialogue,
Yeah.
almost like a play between this young guy
Right.
who's really cynical and a philosopher who's got some pretty radical ideas.
Yeah, it's a great format
Mm.
because it really pulls you in
Yeah.
to the heart of Adlerian psychology, which is what this book is all about.
Yeah.
You hear the youth pushing back, like my past,
Yeah. Right.
dictates my unhappiness.
Right.
And the philosopher is sort of gently guiding him toward a different perspective.
Yeah, it's like we're eavesdropping on this really intense therapy session.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the first things that jumped out at me was this idea, and I'm curious if this is really what Adlerian psychology is saying,
Wow.
that all problems are interpersonal relationship problems.
Mm.
Is that really what...
That's a big...
Yeah, it seems like a huge claim.
It does. It does.
That everything boils down to relationships.
Right. Yeah, well, Adler believed that, even issues that we might consider personal, like,
Yeah. Right.
self-doubt or anxiety, are ultimately connected to how we,
Yeah.
interact with and perceive ourselves
Yeah.
in relation to others.
So how does the book begin to kind of unpack that? Like,
Yeah.
where do they start?
Well, the youth, he's convinced that his past is holding him back.
Yeah.
Maybe trauma, bad experiences, the kind of stuff
Yeah.
we often blame for our current unhappiness.
Uh-huh.
But the philosopher kind of throws a curveball
Right.
and says that Adlerian psychology focuses on teleology.
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 Remind me what that is again?
Yeah. Teleology means we're driven by our future goals,
Okay.
not solely determined by past causes.
Okay.
So it's kind of like imagine you're holding a glass of water.
Okay.
The water is objectively 60 degrees.
Right. Basic science. Got it.
But in the summer,
Yeah.
that 60-degree water feels cool and refreshing. While in the winter, that same temperature, water feels warm compared to the,
Freezing air.
freezing air. Right. So it's not the water
Right.
that changed. It's our perception
Oh.
based on the context.
So our past is like that water.
Exactly.
It's not inherently good or bad.
Yeah.
It's how we're choosing to see it.
Uh-huh.
Now, that shapes our feelings.
Exactly. Our interpretation of the past is fluid
Okay.
and can be influenced by the goals that we set for ourselves.
Mm.
Do you ever find yourself feeling stuck because of something that happened in the past?
Of course, I think we all do at times.
Right.
But what I'm hearing you say is that we don't have to be defined by those past experiences.
Yeah.
We can actually choose to see them differently.
That's a key takeaway. Yeah.
Okay.
And that leads to another kind of radical idea
Okay.
that people can change.
Okay.
Right? It's not about dwelling on why you are the way you are,
Right.
but recognizing that you have the power to change.
Uh-huh.
And it all boils down to courage.
Well, that's easier said than done, though, right?
Oh.
I mean, if change was easy, we'd all be walking around perfectly happy and well-adjusted.
Right. Well, the philosopher digs into why change is so challenging.
Yeah.
He says that, we develop these lifestyles,
Right.
these patterns of thinking and behaving often without even realizing it.
Right. It's like we're on autopilot, just making the same choices over and over, even if they're not actually serving us.
Yeah. And to illustrate this, the book shares this example of a young woman
Okay.
who was terrified of blushing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've never thought of blushing as something you could cure, but
Yeah.
it can be mortifying.
It can be, yeah. And she wanted to be cured because she believed that her blushing was the problem.
Right. Okay.
But the philosopher asked her, well, what would you do if you stopped blushing?
Right.
And it turns out that she wanted to confess her feelings to this guy
Oh.
that she had a crush on,
Oh.
but she was terrified of rejection. So the blushing was a way to avoid putting herself out there.
So the blushing wasn't the real issue. It was the fear of rejection underneath it.
Yeah.
She was subconsciously using the blushing as a shield.
Exactly. She needed the symptom
Yeah.
to avoid this more significant fear.
Wow.
And that's what Adler means when he says all problems are interpersonal.
Okay.
This woman's fear stemmed from her anticipation of how someone else might react to her.
This is making me think about my own patterns now.
Right.
Is there something I'm doing, some symptom I'm clinging to, that's actually preventing me from tackling the real issue in my relationships?
That's a powerful question to ask yourself.
Hmm.
Recognizing those patterns is often the first step to breaking free.
So this idea of all problems are interpersonal gets really interesting because it's shining a light on how our fears and anxieties often come from our perceptions of others
Absolutely.
or how we think others perceive us.
Yeah, the book goes on to explore the concepts of inferiority and superiority complexes. and how those are connected to the need for validation from others.
All right, I'm all ears. Tell me more about these complexes.
Okay.
So we were talking about inferiority and the superiority complexes.
Mhm.
And I think most people have a pretty good grasp of what an inferiority complex is like,
Yeah.
not feeling good enough, feeling
Yeah.
less than.
Uh-huh.
But you're saying that Adler links that to interpersonal relationships.
Exactly. Feelings of inferiority often arise from, you know, comparing ourselves to others.
Yeah.
Craving their approval or fearing their judgment.
Mm-hmm.
But what's fascinating is that Adler saw the superiority complex
Okay.
as stemming from the same insecurity.
Really? So the person who's always boasting and putting others down,
Yeah.
they're actually feeling inferior deep down.
It's a way of overcompensating,
Okay.
Instead of acknowledging their insecurities, they try to mask them
Right.
by acting superior,
Interesting.
putting others down to make themselves feel bigger.
So it's two sides of the same coin, both rooted in this lack of self-acceptance and this desperate need for validation from others.
That's a great way to put it.
Hmm.
And this is where Adler introduces this really practical tool
Okay.
for navigating relationships, the separation of tasks.
All right, let's unpack that. What is the separation of tasks all about?
So it's about recognizing what is within our control
Yeah.
and what isn't.
Okay.
We need to focus on our own tasks
Right.
and avoid stepping into the tasks of others, even if we think we're helping.
So it's about boundaries, but doesn't that sound like a recipe for conflict? Like, what if somebody's making bad choices? Shouldn't we try to intervene?
Well, think of it this way. You can offer someone a glass of water,
Yeah.
but you can't force them to drink it.
Right.
The choice ultimately lies with them.
Okay.
It's about respecting their autonomy.
I can see the wisdom in that, but I'm still a little fuzzy on how this applies to relationships. Can you give me a concrete example?
Yeah, so the book uses the story of Alexander the Great, cutting the Gordian knot.
Okay.
So that, this famously intricate knot
Yeah.
was said to promise rulership of Asia to whoever could untie it.
Right.
But instead of, getting tangled up in its complexities,
Yeah.
Alexander just sliced it in half with his sword.
So a bold, decisive move
Bang.
that cut through all the unnecessary complication.
Exactly.
Right.
The separation of tasks is about applying that same decisiveness
Okay.
to our relationships.
Got it.
We can offer support, guidance, even advice,
Right.
but ultimately we have to let go
Okay.
of trying to control the outcome or solve other people's problems for us.
So instead of getting all caught up in their drama, we should be asking ourselves, is this actually my problem to solve?
That's the key question.
Hmm.
If it's not your task, let it go.
Okay.
Focus your energy on what you can control.
Okay.
Your own thoughts, actions, reactions.
That brings us back to freedom, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If we're constantly trying to manage other people's lives, we're not truly free ourselves.
Absolutely. The book argues that one of the biggest obstacles to freedom
Okay.
is this constant need for validation from others.
Mm-hmm.
It's like building your house on someone else's land.
Yeah.
You're never truly secure.
That's a great analogy. Yeah. I mean, we all want to be liked and accepted, but when that becomes a need, it really starts to control us.
Exactly. And that's why Adler says the courage to be disliked
Okay.
is so crucial.
Okay, we're back to this idea. Why is the courage to be disliked so important for living a fulfilling life?
Because it frees you from the shackles of other people's opinions.
Okay.
It allows you to be your authentic self, even if it means some people won't approve.
In theory, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people really struggle with this.
Sure.
It's hard to go against the grain to risk rejection.
It is. It takes courage to step outside the comfort of conformity.
Right.
But the book argues that this is where true freedom lies.
Okay, and this ties into the idea of horizontal relationships, right?
Yes. Adler contrasts horizontal relationships
Okay.
with vertical relationships.
Read it.
So vertical relationships are hierarchical,
Yeah,
with one person having more power or authority than the other.
like a parent-child relationship.
Exactly, boss simply.
Right. Okay, so what makes a horizontal relationship different?
Horizontal relationships are built on equality and respect.
Okay,
There's no inherent power dynamic.
got it.
It's about recognizing the worth and autonomy of the other person,
Yeah.
even if you disagree with them.
So it's about collaboration and mutual respect rather than trying to control or dominate the other person.
Exactly. And the book suggests that encouragement
Okay.
plays a crucial role in building these horizontal relationships.
Wait, are you saying we shouldn't praise people? Isn't a little praise a good thing?
Well, praise, while seemingly positive,
Yeah.
can actually reinforce those vertical power dynamics.
Okay.
When we praise someone, we're judging them based on our own standards.
Mm.
We're saying you're good because you did what I approve of.
So it's still about control, even if it's disguised as a compliment.
Exactly.
Right.
Encouragement, on the other hand, focuses on effort and progress
Yeah.
rather than outcomes.
Oh.
It's about recognizing the person's inherent value
Mm-hmm.
and supporting their growth, regardless of whether they succeed or fail,
Mm.
according to some external measure.
So instead of saying, great job, you might say, I can see how much effort you put into that.
Exactly.
And I'm proud of you for trying.
Yes, it's about acknowledging their journey, not just the destination.
I like that.
Yeah.
This all seems to be pointing towards a larger idea, this concept of community feeling. What did Adler mean by that?
So community feeling is about feeling a sense of belonging
Okay.
and contributing to something larger than yourself.
Okay.
It's about recognizing our interconnectedness,
Yeah.
not just with the people in our immediate circle, but with all of humanity and even the universe itself.
Wow, that's a pretty expansive view.
Oh.
I'm not sure I can wrap my head around feeling connected to the entire universe.
It might sound abstract, but the book uses a simple example
Okay.
to illustrate this: buying a loaf of bread.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What does buying bread have to do with universal belonging?
Well, think about all the people involved in bringing that loaf of bread to your table.
Okay.
The farmers who grew the wheat, the millers who ground it into flour, the bakers who kneaded and baked it, the truck drivers who transported it, the store clerks who stocked the shelves.
Wow.
It's this vast network of interconnectedness.
When you put it that way, it is kind of mind-blowing. Even something as simple as a loaf of bread connects us to so many people we'll never even meet.
Exactly. And recognizing that interconnectedness is key to developing community feeling.
Hmm.
It shifts our focus from me to we.
And that's where true happiness comes in, right?
Yeah.
It's not about getting what I want. It's about contributing to the well-being of the whole.
That's at the heart of Adlerian psychology. True happiness comes from feeling useful
Okay.
and making a positive impact.
But doesn't that sound a bit selfless? Like, where's the me in all of this?
Well, Adler distinguishes between a self-centered lifestyle
Okay.
and a useful lifestyle.
Okay.
And being useful isn't about sacrificing your own happiness for others.
Right.
It's about finding fulfillment
Hey.
and contributing to something larger than yourself.
So it's not either.
Yeah.
It's both hand.
Right.
We can find individual fulfillment through contributing to the collective good.
Precisely. And this connects to another key concept:
Okay.
finding worth on the level of being rather than doing.
Okay, now you're going to have to explain that one.
Okay.
What's the difference between being and doing when it comes to worth?
Yeah. So I know our culture often equates worth with achievements, accomplishments, busyness.
Mm-hmm.
But Adler suggests that true worth comes from simply existing.
Mm.
It's about recognizing that you have value inherently,
Okay.
regardless of what you do or don't achieve.
So it's like a fundamental shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Instead of constantly striving to prove our worth through our actions, we
Yeah.
recognize that we are inherently worthy simply by being alive.
Exactly. And from that place of self-acceptance,
Yeah.
action flows naturally.
Okay.
It's no longer driven by a need to prove yourself, but by a genuine desire to contribute and connect.
It sounds like this is all about shifting our focus from the future to the present moment. Instead of constantly chasing some elusive goal, we find fulfillment in the here and now.
Yes, the book talks about the importance of energial living.
Energial. That's a new one. What does that mean?
Think of it like dancing.
Okay.
The joy of dancing isn't about reaching a specific point on the dance floor.
Yeah.
It's about the movement, the rhythm, the feeling of the music in your body in that moment.
So it's about enjoying the process, savoring each step of the dance, rather than obsessing over the final pose.
Precisely applying that to life.
Yeah.
It means finding fulfillment in the process of living,
Okay.
rather than constantly striving for some future state of happiness.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's like shifting from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance.
Right.
We already have everything we need to be happy right now.
That's the essence of what Adler is saying. It's a radical shift in perspective, but it's incredibly liberating.
So this energial way of living, it's about embracing the present moment, but how do we actually do that?
Right.
I mean, our world is so fast-paced.
Yeah,
It's so goal-oriented.
it is.
It's easy to get swept up in the doing
Right.
and forget about just being.
Yeah, it's definitely a practice.
Yeah.
It's not something that happens overnight.
Right.
But there are, tools that can help us cultivate
Yeah.
a more present moment
Yeah.
awareness.
Uh-huh.
Things like meditation or yoga.
Right.
Even just taking a few minutes each day to consciously appreciate The simple things around us.
Yeah.
The taste of our coffee, the feeling of sunshine on our skin.
Yeah, I've been trying to incorporate more mindfulness into my own life.
Hmm.
And it's funny, when you slow down and pay attention, even the most mundane things can become so fascinating.
They do. They do.
And that ties back to that courage to be disliked.
Yeah.
Because if we're truly content with just being with the ordinary moments of our lives,
Right.
then we don't need external validation to feel worthy.
Yes, exactly. It's about finding that sense of inherent worth
Yeah.
that Adler talks about.
Okay.
You know, when we believe in our own value, regardless of what others think,
Yeah.
then we're free to live according to our own compass.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. It's like I'm seeing the world through a whole new lens.
I know.
Before we wrap up, are there any other key takeaways from the courage to be disliked that you think our listeners should really remember?
I think the biggest takeaway is that happiness is a choice. You know,
Okay.
it's not something that happens to us. It's something that we create
Right.
through our choices and our mindset.
And one of the most important choices we can make is to focus on building those horizontal relationships
Yes.
based on equality and respect.
Absolutely. Treating others as equals, encouraging their growth, and contributing to something larger than ourselves.
Right.
These are the building blocks of a fulfilling life.
And remember, it all starts with having the courage to be disliked.
Yes.
It sounds paradoxical, but embracing that idea is truly liberating.
It is. It frees us from the tyranny of seeking approval from everyone. It allows us to be our authentic selves,
Yeah.
even if that means some people won't like it.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's okay.
It is okay because, as the philosopher says in the book,
Right.
he'd rather live a life where some people dislike him
Yeah.
than a life where everyone likes him.
Right.
Because true connection comes from being genuine,
Yes.
not from trying to please everyone.
That's such a powerful message.
It is.
You know, it's a reminder that we don't have to be perfect to be worthy of love and belonging.
Right.
In fact, it's often our imperfections
Yeah.
that make us interesting and lovable.
This deep dive has given me so much to think about.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be revisiting The Courage to be Disliked.
Me too.
And I encourage our listeners to do the same. It's a book that really challenges our assumptions and offers a truly liberating perspective on life.
I agree. It's a book that can change your life if you let it.
And who knows, it might even give you the courage to be yourself.
Right.
Even if that means being disliked by a few people along the way.
Yeah.
And that's our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us on this journey into Adlerian psychology.
Thanks for having me.
We'll catch you next time for another thought-provoking exploration.